Ancient Galatia was an area in the highlands of central Anatolia in modern Turkey. Galatia was named for the immigrant Gauls from Thrace, who settled here and became its ruling caste in the 3rd century BC, following the Gallic invasion of the Balkans in 279 BC. It has been called the Gallia of the East, Roman writers calling its inhabitants Galli. Geography: Galatia was bounded on the north by Bithynia and Paphlagonia, on the east by Pontus and Cappadocia, on the south by Cilicia and Lycaonia, and on the west by Phrygia. Its capital was Ankara. Celtic Galatia. Seeing something of a Hellenized savage in the Galatians, Francis Bacon and other Renaissance writers called them Gallo-Graeci, Gauls settled among the Greeks, and the country Gallo-Graecia, as had the 3rd century AD Latin historian Justin. The more usual term in antiquity is a 1/4 unregistered trademark III 1/2 II cubed I plus or minus II plus or minus I to the first of Diodorus Siculus Bibliotheca Historica v 32.5, in a passage that is translated. And were called Gallo-Graeci because of their connection with the Greeks, identifying Galatia in the Greek East as opposed to Gallia in the West. The Galatians were in their origin a part of the Great Celtic Migration which invaded Macedon, led by Brennus. The original Celts who settled in Galatia came through Thrace under the leadership of Leoterios and Leonorios c. 270 BC. These Celts consisted of 3 tribes, the Tecticiges, the Trogmi, and the Tolistoboga. Brennus invaded Greece in 281 BC with a huge war band and was turned back before he could plunder the temple of Apollo at Delphi. At the same time, another Gaulish group of men, women, and children were migrating through Thrace. They had split off from Brennus' people in 279 BC, and had migrated into Thrace under their leaders Leonorius and Luterius. These invaders appeared in Asia Minor in 278 to 277 BC. Others invaded Macedonia, killed the Ptolemaic ruler Ptolemy Ceraunus but were eventually ousted by Antigonus Gonatas, the grandson of the defeated Diadoch Antigonus the One-Eyed. The invaders came at the invitation of Nicomedes I of Bithynia, who wanted their help in a dynastic struggle against his brother. 3 tribes crossed over from Thrace to Asia Minor. They numbered about 10,000 fighting men and about the same number of women and children, divided into 3 tribes, Trachmae, Tolistoboga and Tecticiges. They were eventually defeated by the Seleucid king Antiochus I, in a battle where the Seleucid war elephants shocked the Celts. While the momentum of the invasion was broken, the Galatians were by no means exterminated. Instead, the migration led to the establishment of a long-lived Celtic territory in central Anatolia, which included the eastern part of ancient Phrygia, a territory that became known as Galatia. There they ultimately settled, and being strengthened by fresh accessions of the same clan from Europe, they overran Bithynia and supported themselves by plundering neighboring countries. The Gauls invaded eastern Phrygia on at least one occasion. The constitution of the Galatian state is described by Strabo. By custom, each tribe was divided into cantons, each governed by a chief followed by a judge, whose powers were unlimited except in cases of murder, which were tried before a council of 300 drawn from the 12 cantons and meeting at a holy place, 20 miles southwest of Ankara, written in Greek as II 1/2 I micron I 1/4 I micron II 1/2. It is likely it was a sacred oak grove, since the name means sanctuary of the oaks. The local population of Cappadocians were left in control of the towns and most of the land, paying tithes to their new overlords, who formed a military aristocracy and kept aloof in fortified farmsteads, surrounded by their bands. These Celtic warriors were respected by Greeks and Romans. They were often hired as mercenary soldiers, sometimes fighting on both sides in the great battles of the times. For years, the chieftains and their warbands ravaged the western half of Asia Minor, as allies of one or other of the warring princes, without any serious check. This ended when they sided with the renegade Seleucid prince Antiochus Hierax ruling in Asia Minor, who tried to defeat Attalus, the ruler of Pergamon. Instead, the Hellenized cities united under Attalus's banner, and his armies inflicted several grave defeats upon them, about 232 forcing them to settle permanently and to confine themselves to the region to which they had already given their name. the theme of the dying Gaul remained a favorite in Hellenistic art for a generation. Their right to the district was formally recognized. The three Celtic Galatian tribes remained as described above, the Tecticiges in the center, round with their capital Ancyra, the Talisto-Bogo on the west, round Pessinus as their chief town, sacred to Cybele, and, the Trachmae on the east, round their chief town Tavium. Each tribal territory was divided into 4 cantons or tetrarchies. Each of the 12 tetrarchs had under him a judge and a general. A council of the nation consisting of the tetrarchs and 300 senators was periodically held at Drynemeton. The king of Attalid Pergamon hired Galatians in the increasingly devastating wars of Asia Minor. Another band deserted from their Egyptian overlord Ptolemy IV after a solar eclipse had broken their spirits. In the early 2nd century BC, they proved terrible allies of Antiochus the Great, the last Seleucid king trying to regain suzerainty over Asia Minor. In 189 BC, Rome sent Gnaeus Manlius Vulso on an expedition against the Galatians, the Galatian War. He defeated them. Galatia was henceforth dominated by Rome through regional rulers from 189 BC onward. Galatia declined and fell at times under Pontic ascendancy. They were finally freed by the Mithridatic Wars, during which they supported Rome. In the settlement of 64 BC, Galatia became a client state of the Roman Empire, the old constitution disappeared, and 3 chiefs were appointed, 1 for each tribe. But this arrangement soon gave way before the ambition of one of these tetrarchs, Deiotarus, the contemporary of Cicero and Julius Caesar, who made himself master of the other 2 tetrarchies and was finally recognized by the Romans as king of Galatia. Roman Galatia. Upon the death of Deiotarus, the kingdom of Galatia was given to Amyntas, an auxiliary commander in the Roman army of Brutus and Cassius who gained the favor of Mark Antony. After his death in 25 BC, Galatia was incorporated by Augustus into the Roman Empire, becoming a Roman province. Near his capital Ancyra, Pylaemons, the king's heir, rebuilt a temple of the Phrygian god meant to venerate Augustus, as a sign of fidelity. It was on the walls of this temple in Galatia that the major source for the res gestae of Augustus were preserved for modernity. Few of the provinces proved more enthusiastically loyal to Rome. Josephus related the biblical figure Gomer to Galatia, for Gomer founded those whom the Greeks now call Galatians, Gauls, but were then called Gomerites. Others have related Gomer to Cimmerians. Although originally possessing a strong cultural identity, by the 2nd century AD the Galatians had become assimilated into the Hellenistic civilization of Anatolia. The Galatians were still speaking the Galatian language in the time of Saint Jerome, who wrote that the Galatians of Ancyra and the Treveri of Trier spoke the same language. In an administrative reorganization 2 new provinces succeeded it, Galatia Prima and Galatia Secunda or Salutaris, which included part of Phrygia. The fate of the Galatian people is a subject of some uncertainty, but they seem ultimately to have been absorbed into the Greek-speaking populations of Anatolia. There was a short-lived 11th century attempt to re-establish an independent Galatia by Roussel de Banlieue. See also, History of Anatolia, Notes. References. This article incorporates text from a publication now in the public domain, Chisholm, Hugh, ed. Encyclopædia Britannica. Cambridge University Press, Encyclopedia, Mazen Carter 2001, under article Galatia. Barraclough, Geoffrey, ed. HarperCollins Atlas of World History 2nd ed. Oxford, HarperCollins, 1989. 76 €77. John King, Celt Kingdoms, pg. 74 €75. The Catholic Encyclopedia, 6, Epistle to the Galatians. Stephen Mitchell, 1993. Anatolia, Land, Men, and Gods in Asia Minor Volume 1, The Celts and the Impact of Roman Rule. 1993. ISBN 0-19-814080-0. Concentrates on Galatia. Volume 2 covers the rise of the Church. David Rankin, 1996. Celts and the Classical World, Chapter 9 The Galatians. Coorkun, A., Das und der Umverländlichen Herrschaft in Galatien und das Beispiel einer sanften Provinz als Errungen Zentralanatolien, in Koorkan, a. Freundschaft und Gefolgschaft in den Auswirkungen Beziehungen der Paragraph mehr 133 Euro 164. Justin K. Hardin, Galatians and the Imperial Cult. A critical analysis of the first-century social context of Paul's letter. Musiebek, Tar 1 Bingen, Germany 2008, ISBN 978-3-16-149563-2. External links, Celtic Galatians. A detailed map of Celtic settlements in Galatia PDF A, 1.60 MB, unrv.com, Galatia.